All right, welcome back to the channel, and boy, do I have something special for you all today. So recently, it was on New Year's Day. I reacted to the full interview from the Cigar Aficionado YouTube channel, and it was a long interview. It was about an hour-long interview, and fantastic. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. It's one of the most liked videos I've put out there so far. But during that, there was a short little segment where Jordan and this guy here, who's Marvin Shanken, they discussed that they have had an interview before, and that got the wheels turning, and I was really curious about it, and I asked you guys if you ever heard of it, and none of you have ever heard of this. But with a little bit of teamwork between me and the commenters on that video, one, and you know who you are, suggested maybe it was only in print, maybe it wasn't in video form back then because it was so long ago. That put me down that set me down a rabbit hole, and I freaking found it from 2005, an incredibly long interview. I'm gonna have to actually speak it because it's not on video. This is just on the Cigar Aficionado website, but they have the full interview from July 2005 right here between Marvin and MJ. And I'm not going to waste any of your time. We're gonna get right into it. I looked at how long the interview is. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get through this one shot, but we're gonna start now. So everybody, please leave a like to this video. This is one of those things I don't think barely anybody knows about this. So leave this video a like, leave it a comment, even if it's just a period or something. Push this one out into the algorithm. That way the world could see this. So, all right, guys, we are gonna go right down into here. It starts out with an intro, but it's 2005, so it's gonna be past his playing days. So I'm gonna start out with the first question. So Marvin asked, what brought you more pleasure, playing for the North Carolina Tar Heels or the Chicago Bulls? Jordan responds, that's a good question. I would say it was for the Tar Heels. Really? No one knew me until then. That's when the notoriety and everything began with Michael Jordan. By the time I got to Chicago, I was drafted 3, so everybody knew who I was. Everybody knew I was at least decent. Interesting. So he liked being the underdog. All right. He continues with, but at North Carolina, when they recruited me and asked me to attend a university, it was an opportunity to prove myself. Up to that point, everybody had heard this kid is pretty good, but we don't know how good. He came from a small town. He wasn't preseason All-American. He wasn't in the top 10, 100 or the top 100 high school kids. He didn't attend AAU games, and he was not ranked player of the nation. Okay, so he did enjoy being the underdog for sure. Look how much younger he looks back then too. He had just stopped playing about 2 years prior to this. He continues. The University of North Carolina really gave me the foundation that it took to become a basketball player. Up to then, I hadn't been spoiled by the media spotlight. I was still raw. As a result, I had an appetite to prove to everybody that I was a decent basketball player, or at least good enough basketball player to be at North Carolina. That was by far the purest experience for me and the most satisfying. Okay. Yeah, so I'm totally getting what he's saying here because, yeah, he was so spoiled. This makes me think, and I've been thinking this a lot lately, that LeBron James would have benefited from going to college for a couple of years at least. It really would have happened. He would have learned how to be an adult before being spoiled. And it's cool that MJ recognizes this. Okay, back to Marvin. He asked Jordan, did you ever regret missing your senior year? Jordan responds, yeah, because I had a great time in college. It was the first time I'd been away from home. I'd met new people and made new friends. It was an exciting time. It was just fun. Marvin asked, what was the rush to jump out so early? Jordan replies, It was Coach Dean Smith's call. Yeah, I remember this too. He always talks about this. I relied so much on his knowledge. The NBA was an area where I wasn't too knowledgeable. My parents weren't knowledgeable about it either, and it was a great opportunity. Coach Smith felt that if that it would be the best opportunity to me to make it in professional basketball. Once he researched the situation to find out where I would go in the draft, then he started weighing the pros and cons. Interesting. All right, Marvin asked, wasn't that pretty unselfish of him? Because it meant he would lose you next season. Exactly. And Jordan replies with, that was totally unselfish. It's the kind of person that he was. He could have said, you should stay for your senior year. We have a great team with some great new recruits. Kenny Smith and Brad Doherty were coming on. Oh, yeah. Our team was going to be really good, but he felt like, for me personally, going to the NBA was the best thing, and it was the best opportunity. That's how you know he's not just a good coach, but a good man. He was looking out for the best thing for his students, for his players, and no wonder why Jordan has never said a bad thing about Coach Smith ever to this day. All right, Marvin asked, how exciting was it going back this year and watching North Carolina win an NCAA championship again? Oh, so this was in 94, 95 probably. Okay. Jordan replies, I only went to one game in almost 21 years. Wow. One game at Notre Dame that I drove down from Chicago in my second or third season with the Bulls. Other than that, I'd never been to a Carolina basketball game. To go there and see that the tradition and see that everything was still the same was great. That is cool. The camaraderie, the sport, the former players, the executives, everything was the same. It was good for me to go back, and it was good for my kids to see. That's one of the reasons I went, was for my kids. This is a cool interview. All right, Marvin asked, how did the fans treat you? Oh boy. All right, Jordan replies, well, it was a little different because of Illinois playing in the finals. I live in Illinois. It was the first time Illinois had been to a title game in so many years, but my true heart was in North Carolina. And that's where I think the fans understood that. They weren't bitter that I was supporting Carolina or that I was wearing the Carolina blue. Yeah, I mean, he's got pride in his school, so I totally understand that. All right, Marvin asks, I've read that almost the entire starting team of North Carolina opted to go to the NBA draft, including 3 juniors, McCants, Raymond Felton, and Sean May, as well as Marvin Williams. I didn't know McCants went to North Carolina. That's me speaking. I'm sorry. I personally, mind crime here. I didn't know that McCants went there. Is this good for the players? Jordan replies, is that good? Question mark. I could be biased from the outside looking in. I'm very supportive of the university, and I would like to see them have the opportunity to defend their championship. And in that respect, I think the players should have stayed in school. Just from a selfish aspect, I wanted to cheer for my university. I get that. But I don't have the understanding of what the family situations were like for these players, for sure. Or what motivates them. Sometimes you have to follow your dream. Their decision also depends on what Coach Roy Williams advised them and about what picks they would be. That team had accomplished a lot in winning a championship. That's the ultimate prize. I think what my mother would have told me, as long as you go back and get that degree, then I can understand the sacrifice that you make to leave school. Editor's note, Jordan, who left college in 1984, received his degree from North Carolina in 1996. Yep, I remember that clearly. I think he talked about it in Come Fly With Me, if I'm not mistaken, because I always knew that about Jordan. He did leave early, but he did finish his schooling and got his degree. All right. How am I doing so far, you guys? I used to be the kid in school who, if it was my turn to read a paragraph, I would freeze up and I couldn't read. It's not that I couldn't read. It was that I couldn't read in public. So I'm trying my best here. All right. So continuing on. All right. So Marvin, this guy right here, Mr. Cigar, he asked Jordan, are these early exits from college good or bad for the NBA? He's asking some very interesting questions. All right. Jordan replies, that depends too. I'm a firm believer that a player should be 20 years old or older before going to the pros. That does kind of make sense. At least 2 years of being an adult before you get rich. That would be smart. Anything less than that is potentially bad. You've got a lot of things you have to take into consideration. The lifestyle, just the mental and physical demands of the NBA that these kids are going to be dealing with are tough. And their whole maturity level, not only for basketball, but on the personal side too, has to be taken into account. If I had been a freshman or even a sophomore, no matter how good I was, I don't know if I would have been ready for what I had to deal with in the professional ranks. But you got more and more young guys doing it. I'm a firm believer that something is affected by leaving college too early or not going to college at all. It also, this is me speaking now, it also shows like why the maturity level is different in the NBA now. Because imagine it, these are kids, a lot of these kids are coming out at 18 years old. They've never been an adult. They've never been in the real world. And all of a sudden, they're rich for playing basketball. You know, that's got to mess with your head. I think about like somebody like Michael Jackson or something like that. You know, he was a star from 5 years old. That wasn't healthy for his psyche at all. You know, it's not good to be famous and rich that young. Anyways, Jordan continues on. As an NBA executive, if you have to invest in a player, you want to see more of the product that you are going to invest in. Since you aren't going to see as many games of those leaving school early, to be able to gauge the maturity of these guys' basketball talent, you're rolling the dice. You are gambling. If you don't gamble right, you're going to be set back 2 or 3 years. That makes sense. Yeah. Now, how does it affect the colleges? Jordan continues. Look at North Carolina. You have to rebuild that team. You've almost got to start up again with all new players. Yeah, it's true. Right after winning a championship. But the impact is even spreading down into the high school ranked kids. Kids that are not really looking at academics. They just want to get good. Yeah, okay. If they can't get into a college, the first thing they're going to say is, well, I'm going to go pro. That may not be the best thing for them. So this trend trickles down all the way into high school. Wow. So he was noticing that all the way back in, well, now 20 years ago. God, it's crazy. This interview is from 20 years ago, you guys. Please put it in the comments. Have you ever heard this? Have you read this? I don't know anybody who has. All right, continuing on. Marvin asks Jordan, are you saying that kids should not be allowed to go directly from high school into the pros without some kind of college experience? It's going to get interesting. Jordan replies, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm a firm believer in that. You can argue a lot of different situations from social to financial. Maybe there has to be some type of arrangement between the NCAA and the NBA for those kids who are not financially stable. For them, there will always be pressure for going to the pros to take care of their families. I agree with that 100% too. Yeah, a lot of people, for a lot of these young kids, it's not a choice. You know, I think more so back then than now, especially. They didn't have a choice. They had to get their family out of poverty, and they had an opportunity to make millions of dollars within the next year. Yeah, who wouldn't take that deal? All right, Marvin replies with, what about players like Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James? Jordan replies, but you're talking about one player, LeBron James, who's been very successful in his first 2 years. Kobe, Garnett, McGrady, Jermaine O'Neal, all those guys took at least 3 years before they adapted to what they had to do as professional basketball players. Do I agree with that? I mean, KG came out pretty much right off the bat. Kobe did have an adjustment period, but that was more on his coach. LeBron kind of came out splashing. Jermaine, I mean, maybe a year. T-Mac, I don't know. I don't know what my view is on that. I think they would benefit from college, though, if they can financially afford it. I absolutely agree with Jordan on that. All right, Marvin replies, they probably don't know what they missed, but you knew because you experienced college. What's important about staying in college? Jordan replies, you get a chance to mature in college. They get a chance to deal with a lot of issues in college. There's the education aspect too. College teaches you a lot. It teaches you about being on your own, making decisions, and even handling bank accounts. Yeah, the finances is, I think that's very important myself. Eventually, you're going to have to deal with those things anyways. And there's Jordan smiling and laughing with his cigar in his hand. We saw in the more recent interview, the video. Cigar says MJ says he smokes 6 cigars nowadays. Like, that's insane to me. All right. So Marvin continues on and asks Jordan, you mentioned Dean Smith in a very positive way. I've wanted to ask what influence Dean Smith had on you as a young player. That's a very interesting question, because Jordan does. He speaks to him almost like he was a father figure. So let's see. Jordan replies, he taught me a lot about the game, not just about the athleticism required to play it. I'm a firm believer that when you come out of high school, you are strictly athletic. Agreed. You've got a lot of athletic talents. Very few players are taught the game the right way in high school. He's cooking here. When you go into these college programs, which was the best thing that happened to me, they are going to teach you all aspects of the game of basketball so you can apply that to your athletic skills and develop them. Once you leave college, you are a complete basketball player. Athletically, you are complete. And you know how to utilize that athleticism. And you know how to play the game within the team concept. You got a lot of these kids coming out of high school who never really had the right coaching. They think they can get by with just athleticism. It's not that way. There is very little teaching in the pros. You don't have time to teach. You've got 82 games in a season. Wow. It's the thing that we talk about with LeBron the most. All the time. We talk about what benefit he would have had if he went to a college program and actually learned the fundamentals of the game. But it didn't happen, and it does show. The maturity in his game and the work ethic in order to master those fundamentals is not there. Jordan obviously had it. He was constantly altering his game. And he was winning with his mind, not just his body. Kobe came out of high school, but somehow he figured it out. I don't know if it was his close relationship with Jordan or what it was, but he focused nonstop on the fundamentals of basketball. And so he kind of broke that mold from high school players. Kevin Garnett, too. All right. So Marvin continues on and asks Jordan, where did you learn your work ethic? Jordan replies, my parents. Marvin replies, people say that nobody practiced harder, and you worked as hard in practice as you did in the game. There were no two different levels. There were no two different levels. Yeah, I get you. He's always consistent. Is that true? Jordan replies, I was taught to do it that way by my parents and by the way they approached their daily activities. It wasn't half-assed. So I practiced like I played. So when I played, playing was fun, practice is work. You're working on the idiosyncrasies of what your game needs. So when the game comes, you showcase it and you utilize it. Whoa. You build your game on it. Practice wasn't just a place to take time off. You work on things in practice, on shooting, on going left, or on using your left hand. Those types of things to help you get better. This is so cool because Jordan's a quick little tidbit. Jordan's my favorite athlete of all time. A guy named Steve Vai is my favorite musician of all time. And they both say the same thing, except for one is a stage and one is a basketball court. But Steve Vai says the same thing, which is when I'm practicing at home, I'm working on my weaknesses. And when I'm on the stage performing live, I'm embellishing my everything that I already do well, you know? And eventually, if I keep that habit going, then some of those things that used to be weaknesses are now some of the things that become embellished on stage. But you don't work on your weaknesses on stage. You do that when you're working at home practicing. And Jordan basically said the same thing. Practice is work. On the stage, you show off what you do the best. Anyways, moving on. Excuse me. Marvin asked, you were drafted number 3. Did you have any idea before the draft where you were going to go? Were you surprised? Were you disappointed? Jordan replies, at the time, I committed to go pro because of Coach Smith's research. I was projected to go to Philly because Philly was in a 3rd spot. Oh. Back in those days, the draft was based on wins and losses. So at the time, Philly was in the 3rd slot. Billy Cunningham was the coach, and he was a Carolina guy. He said, based on where we are right now in the 3rd slot, Michael won't go less than 3 because we'll be taking him at 3. Coach Smith knew that plan, but Chicago started losing games. In those days, if you lost games, you could move up in the draft. So once Chicago moved into 3rd place, Philly moved to 5th because Dallas was coming in. Dallas was coming in as an expansion team, and they had the 4th pick. I could have easily gone back to the 5th pick, but then I got assurance from Houston that if they lost the coin flip to Portland, they'd take me. Interesting. So that would have sent Hakeem to Portland, and then Houston would have taken MJ. How crazy. Okay, continuing on. It was a coin flip between the top 2 teams to determine the 1st pick. But if Houston won the coin flip, they said they were going to take Hakeem Olajuwon. Yep, and they won that 1st pick. And that's exactly what happened. Hakeem Olajuwon went to Houston, and Portland went to its fallback pick, which was Sam Bowie. Wow. So yeah, wow. Well, what a switch up. They wanted Hakeem. They lost the coin flip, and they ended up with the Sam Bowie. Damn. All right. Continuing. If Portland had won the coin flip, they would have taken Hakeem. And I would have ended up in Houston. But the coin flip came up in Houston, and that put me back to 3rd in Chicago. How crazy. So was this pre-lottery time? No draft lottery? Because the way Jordan is describing it here was that it was a direct correlation to wins and losses. So by the Bulls, I mean, potentially they might have tanked at that point at the end of the season in 83. Or that would have still been 84, whatever. The season prior to Jordan getting drafted, like by tanking, did they just move up in the draft just by tanking at the end of the year? Let me know if you guys know anything about that. All right. So that's how he got to Chicago. Marvin asked, did you have a preference for which city you wanted to play in? Jordan replies, not really. At that time, I just wanted to be drafted. Fair enough. Marvin asked, you were born in Brooklyn, New York. I just want to remind you. Then they're laughing. So that laugh might be that right there. I would probably imagine, because it says lots of laughter. All right. Jordan replies, I don't think New York was in the picture. I don't think they had a pick that year, but at that time, you just want to get in the league. I didn't watch much pro basketball until I got into college, so I wanted to play in the NBA. Much simpler time. All right. Marvin asks, what was your original deal in Chicago? This is going to get cool. Jordan replies, financially? People are going to love this. It was a 7-year deal. I averaged about $850,000 a year. Imagine that. Damn. In 84 too. Okay. The first year's compensation was $650K. There was no signing bonus. We tried to get an attendance clause. They were averaging 6,000 people a game, so we thought, okay, we're gonna ask for an attention clause or attendance clause. At that time, Jonathan Kovler was the owner. My agent, David Falk, went in and asked for that. Kovler said, we're not going to give him an attendance clause because if we draft him at the 3 spot, he better put people in the seats. So they never gave us an attendance clause. That is a cool idea, though, an attendance clause, because to be fair, no one was going to those Bulls games before Jordan, so they knew they had something here. But fair enough on the owner to say, like, that's why we picked you, was to put people in the seats. So that's part of what we're paying you for. But just imagine that. $650K. We got people making $50 million a year now. MJ's out there busting his ass off as a Bull for $650K. All right. So, and this one looks like he's almost like insulted by something, but in a humorous way. So let's see what that's going to lead to. Marvin asked, so for the first 7 years, you didn't get a raise. And Jordan said, nope, that was my deal. And this is where, this is me talking here, where I always want to bring up to people who, you know, we talk about Scottie Pippen and the deal he signed. Yeah, guess what? Jordan did the same thing, but he never complained about it. He went out and made money on his own outside of the NBA. And either way, even if you're making, you know, an average of about like $800,000 a year, you're still okay. You're still making plenty of money. Could you make more? Absolutely. But that's for the next deal, you know, and Jordan was fine with that. Jordan didn't make a lot of money from the NBA until pretty much the end of his career. The end of his Bulls tenure, that is. All right. So here we are. Marvin replies to that with, were you unhappy about that? Jordan said, no, I wasn't unhappy. Money didn't drive me at the time, so I wasn't worried about it. Once I signed my contract, I felt like, let's go out and earn the money. And I was the highest paid rookie at the time. That's a good mentality. All right. Marvin asks, do you have a happiest memory or a peak moment when you were playing with the Chicago Bulls? Jordan replies, my happiest moment? There were so many. Do you want me to start early in my career? Making the playoffs for the first time was the biggest thing for me because that franchise hadn't experienced the playoffs in a very long time. The fans' attitude was wait until next year, wait till next year. In the third game of my career, we were playing Milwaukee and we were down 16 points going into the fourth quarter. People started to leave. Wait, down 16. Okay. Going into the fourth, people started to leave. That was their whole attitude. The game was over. I'd never experienced people leaving a game like that. It was something new. Everybody at North Carolina stayed until the end of the game out of respect for the team. So yeah, so the Bulls had a loser mentality. I get it. All right. Most of my teammates in Chicago had adapted to the fans leaving. and just figured the game must be over. I'm saying no, it's not over until there are triple zeros on a scoreboard. I got a burst of energy and started to lead the charge. I got the opportunity to prove it's never really over. We came from 16 points down to win the game. Hell yeah. That's when the city of Chicago started to say, okay, something's starting to happen. Something is changing. There's no give up in this kid, no matter what. He's going to keep fighting and fighting and fighting until we win or lose. That's how my first season went. That was the biggest plus for me when we made the playoffs that year. And I guess that's why it was so important that he did that his second year coming off of the injury. He wanted to prove to those fans that when he's on the court, he's going to get this team to the damn playoffs at least. Anyways, continuing on. Marvin asked, when you were playing for the Bulls, did you as a player or as a team ever have any real rivalries, or was it all hype? Oh, okay. Jordan replies, no, we had some rivalries. Early on, it was Milwaukee. We couldn't beat Milwaukee. They were just 45 minutes to an hour away. They were a strong team that constantly kept beating us. Even when we got in the playoffs, they kept beating us. Yeah, Milwaukee's who eliminated them in Jordan's rookie year. Anyways, Jordan continues. Then we got to a point where we started beating them. Then the rivalry went from Milwaukee to Detroit. And that was brutal. Isaiah Thomas was from Chicago, and he wanted to come back and show he still dominated Chicago. I was the new guy in Chicago, and people were supporting the team. It became a dogfight between us. There was some real hatred there. On the floor, it was that whole physicality of the game. And and that's what was happening on the basketball court. Anybody going into the paint was going to get knocked down. If you got stitches, you got stitches. Absolutely. Those are the types of games we had. But once we overcame them, then we knew we could do anything. There was no one else beating us or having that kind of rivalry with us. Yep, that was it. And we all know that's once they got past the Pistons, that was it. Stacking championships after that. All right. Marvin replies to him, your biggest rival was Detroit. Where did the Knicks fit in? Jordan replies, the Knicks came later. Yeah, that was their 90s rival. Marvin replies, because as New Yorkers, we hated Michael Jordan. You said you single-handedly took us down more times than I want to remember. Every time in the playoffs when we thought we could reach the top, you nailed us. Yep. Jordan replies, once we started winning and got past Detroit, the Knicks became our biggest rivals. They were trying to get where we were, and we're trying to maintain what we were. Every battle was magnified. Patrick Ewing was a good friend. Charles Oakley used to be in Chicago. John Starks, Charles Smith, Anthony Mason, all these guys. When Detroit was winning, everybody had adopted the physical type of game. New York became that way too. You go in the middle, you're going to get hit. Patrick was a fierce intimidator, and it's so funny to me because they never. It's like once they got over the whole Detroit bad boys thing, next thing you know, we got the freaking Knicks, and the Knicks are doing the exact same thing as the Pistons, but the only difference is this time the Bulls were tougher. They had learned. They dealt with a bully like this before, and they overcame it. So the Knicks could never get the better of Jordan. The only time they beat him in the playoffs was when Jordan was retired. Anyways, I'm gonna read a little bit more, and then I'm going to give it a pause here. Marvin continues. What was this rumor about Jordan coming to New York? We always heard that Michael Jordan was coming to the Knicks. We hated you, but on the other hand, we wanted you. Yeah, that's how the whole league felt at that time. Everyone hated Jordan because he was beating everybody. But at the same time, would we welcome him to Phoenix, for instance? Hell yeah, we would. We'll take him in a heartbeat. All right, so Jordan replies, "It was truly a rumor. We had one occasion where there was a dialogue. It must have been in 1996 or 1997 because of my contract situation in Chicago, but nothing ever really materialized." Interesting. I'm sure Mr. Krause has something to do with that too, because he was in such a rush to blow up the Bulls. Marvin, so I mean, that's cool, by the way. That puts that to rest. Was Jordan ever really going to New York? No, it wasn't. All right, so Marvin continues on. But you told me recently that a phone call, you told me recently that had a phone call come at the right time, you would have been a New York Knick. Oh, okay. So some pushback. Jordan replies, "If Chicago had not made a significant offer, New York was next. We actually had a dialogue with New York. If a phone call didn't come in 30 minutes from Chicago, we were already getting assurances that we would have gone to the Knicks for less money." Wow. So the Bulls ownership and GM almost screwed up Jordan. They almost lost Jordan because of freaking greed. Marvin replies, "How would you fix today's New York Knicks?" Oh shoot. Yeah, 2005 was a rough time. Hey man, hey Knicks fans, you're finally looking good. 2024-25, you guys are looking good again. Congratulations. We missed the Knicks being a good team. All right. So how would you fix the Knicks? He asked Jordan. Jordan replies, "I knew that was coming. I don't want to second guess Isaiah. I'm not taking over for Isaiah as general manager." Marvin replies, "No, I'm not suggesting that. What would you do?" Jordan replies, "They have a tough team. They have a lot of injuries and a lot of big contracts. First of all, you have to find some commodities that you feel will benefit the New York Knicks. But when you do that, you can't just think one way. You have to find some team that feels that the players on the Knicks will be a better fit for the other team. Until you find the right situations for those players, you have to wait until their existing contracts expire or buy them out of their contracts. For the Knicks, it isn't a financial issue. They are still taking on a lot of contracts." And it looks like that might have been him contemplating that question. All right, you guys, I think we made it about... Oh, we got a long way to go. I'm gonna have to cut it off here, guys. My concentration, my eyes to the screen here are starting to blur a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause it here for today. I plan on coming back either tomorrow or maybe the next day, but very soon I'm gonna do a part 2 to this, and we're gonna plow through it until we get to the end. But for today, I gotta call it quits. Like my eyes are starting to twitch at staring at the screen, so I'm gonna go ahead and call it. What do I think about this so far? So much better than I expected. You guys, this is so cool. These are a lot of questions I've never heard Michael Jordan answer. So shout out to Marvin for asking really interesting questions. And once again, you know who you are in the comments. Thank you so much for suggesting that this interview might have just been printed and not on video, because of that comment right there that we're here checking this out. So all right, it looks like this might be 3 parts, but I'll do a part 2 really soon. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. There's a lot to talk about in this one, so shoot those comments down below. Let's have a cool conversation about what we've heard so far. I'm gonna link the original article here in the description box, like I usually do with the video links. So if you guys want to read ahead, go for it. I'm personally not going to do it. That way all of this is fresh as I go through it with you guys. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Please leave this video a like. Let's push it out there so the world can see this interview. Subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. And everybody, thank you so much. I'll see you real soon, okay? I can't wait to talk in the comments. So, get in the comments, everybody. Let's have a good time. All right, everyone. Peace out. Thank you for watching.